Hello, everyone, and welcome to Safe and Sound, a podcast about the intersection of music and mental health with me, your host, Jeremy Houtsma, licensed mental health counselor. My guest today is Erin Tate. Erin was the drummer for Minus the Bear for over 14 years. He also started the Indie Drum Collective, a collective of indie drummers from the scene who collaborate and do covers of other artists' work. But maybe his most important role is a site director for Plymouth Housing, a nonprofit in Seattle that helps people who experienced homelessness transition to permanent supportive housing. After hitting his rock bottom, losing almost everything, and trying to build his life back, Erin is no stranger to the toll addiction and mental health can have on someone in the music industry. In many people's story, Erin admits he's the villain, that he's done incredibly hurtful things to other people and himself. In other people's story, he has been a source of goodness. In the course of interviewing and editing the podcast, it came to light that Erin was a personal source of light to people in my family. As a mental health therapist, I've sat with people in their worst moments, heard behaviors and actions that many people would find appalling. My job has never been about judging people's actions, however horrible they may have been. My job has been to understand people. This podcast is not a therapy session, but I still hold curiosity with people's stories. People are complicated. Trauma, addiction, all those things make people do horrible things. It's not an excuse, but it's context. And with that context in mind, I invite you to listen to this interview.
Yo, hey, how's it going? It's going. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I just had back-to-back clients. So
yeah.
I have ADHD, so like staring at a screen for 4 to 5 hours is difficult at times.
Yeah, I moved up into like a newer gig at my work like 6 months ago, and so I have to do a lot more desk work, and I'm not wired that way.
Yeah.
And so literally today I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do fucking dig outs all day. And so I just shoveled disgusting things into black bags all day today. And I feel way fucking better because of it.
What's the what are you working?
I work for Plymouth Housing now.
Okay.
I was at DESC, Downtown Emergency Service Center. I was there for almost 9 years and 8 years. And then I took a hiatus between gigs, and then I moved over to Plymouth. I've been there a year now. I run one of the permanent supportive housing buildings.
Oh, okay. Did I see on your Instagram that you're moving in that area?
Pardon me, just so you know, I have a really fucking anxious dog next to me.
Oh, that's okay.
He may bark or something.
Mine's in the background.
Yeah,
it's just
it's like the second that I get home from work, he's so
my dog
needy.
was on Prozac for a long time because he was so anxious.
You know, we put him on antidepressant, we put him on I can't even remember what we put him on, and it makes him really aggro.
Oh, really?
Instead of melling him out. Yeah. So it's my groomer was like, finally she was just like, fuck it, don't listen to your vet. My organization is doing like a whole reorg right now, and it's just like it's agency wide, and everyone's super stressed out, and they're like, to be honest with you, and they know, I'm honest with them about it, they're doing a really shitty job of it and stressing people the fuck out, and I'm just trying to I had like a freak out last week, and I just was like, I finally admitted that it was all the stress, so I took a few days off and did some step work around it. You know, I did a 4th and 5th step, and I was able to go back and just be like, all right, cool. Whatever happens now.
Oh, good of you to be able to let go of that, because
it's stressful shit. Dealing with mental health is fucking hard. It's draining. And dealing with, this insane fucking fentanyl epidemic. It's just wild, man. Are
you seeing a lot of trank down there too, or?
Starting to, from what I hear. I haven't really been involved with it yet. The building that I work in is we're actually like closing it's an old historic building in Belltown, and we're actually closing the building down. So we're moving residents from my building to into like nicer, newer buildings and stuff. So we haven't, it's just been really weird trying to case management, through moves, and also deal with everything that comes with closing a fucking historic building is incredibly overwhelming, to say the least. Yeah. I'm actually going up right after we speak. I have a client who's at the hospital right now and she's like on the verge of being sepsis, and
Jeez.
she's just not wanting to be there. So we're all taking turns going to visit her at the hospital just to like keep her there. So
Yeah.
but we're on some by any means necessary shit right
Eh,
now.
Did you grow up in Minnesota? Is it in
I
Minneapolis or?
yeah, I did. I was born in St. Paul, and I did most of my growing up in Minneapolis.
Okay.
I moved to Seattle in 1999, March of 99.
What just early on, when did you pick up the drums?
Man, I was thinking about that. I'm going to be 48 this year. So I think 40 years ago, I think like we're coming up on 40 years ago. I was probably either 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a brother who's 4 years older, incredibly
Me too.
talented. Him and his best friend got a guitar and a bass, and I was always the straggler. My brother was kind enough to let me straggle along with him,
Yeah.
the 4-year-old younger kid. And basically they were like, you have to get a drum set. So that's what I did. My parents got me one for Christmas that year, and my brother and this guy Phil and I just played. My brother and I played in every band I've ever been in until I moved here. I was in with my brother, which is a lot of bands.
That's crazy because like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure my brother's 4 years older, and like anytime it's no knock on him, but like I've always kind of just wondered. I like he never wanted to play with me.
Yeah.
Like never wanted to play. So like the idea of people playing in bands with their siblings, like John and David, and them playing in the Quiet Ones and stuff like that. I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
like how did?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I like looking back at it now, I think we had during that kind of stage of our lives, our mom was pretty alcoholic.
Mhm.
She's sober like 14 years now, but she was pretty alcoholic, and I think a lot of it was like my brother just making sure I was okay and
Yeah.
bringing me, looking back at it now, like bringing me with him, and that whatever that translated into the musical experience.
Yeah.
Not one person on either side of my family is fucking musical at all.
Yeah.
But somehow both me and my brother are. So
Who were some of your like early drumming influences at all?
when I was really, really young, I was into and like when I started drumming, it was the 80s, so I was into hair metal. Like Kiss was the first band that I like saw live.
Yeah.
I always tell this story, but I saw Guns N' Roses open for Alice Cooper on the Appetite
Nice.
for Destruction tour.
Nice.
So it was like they were opening, like
Yeah.
I think the first single, Welcome to the Jungle, had like just come out, right? And it was, I mean, I was young, and it was fucking mind blowing. I mean, they not only, obviously Appetite for Destruction is like an incredible record, but you think about like when a band is younger and so they're working way fucking harder,
Yeah.
it's like they had that drive there to beat out Alice Cooper at a fucking sold out arena show. And it was memorable for me. But yeah, I got into that. And then my brother and I both we got into a lot of punk, skater punk, and some stuff through there. And then right around 13 or 14, I just dropped everything and listened to hip hop exclusively
Interesting.
for many years. So, a lot of my influence throughout my early teens into probably almost around the time that I moved here, was heavily influenced by hip hop. I always said that like Dr. Dre was like, just the way he arranges beats is mind blowing to me. Like anything that you can just like automatically make you nod your head, you don't even realize you're nodding your head.
Right.
So the idea of like kick drum placement became very big to me. And that was really what went into Minus the Bear. Like you mentioned that Crisco Twister song, like that song is a direct ripoff of fucking Daft Punk. When that, whatever, I can't remember the name of the record right now, but when that awesome Daft Punk record came out, yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, now I can't remember the name of it because I'm thinking about it. Not the one that had Pharrell and everyone on it, but the one before that. That was really big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
It's that. I think Kanye sampled it too. That bigger, faster.
Yeah. Better,
song.
faster, stronger. Yeah.
That's then we all bought yachts and raced up to the islands. There's like this bell. It's like a direct ripoff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna hear that all the time.
Yeah. A lot of my, a lot of the early Minus the Bear, especially the early Minus the Bear stuff, was very influenced by like, a lot of, I will say like Dave and I wrote everything in the beginning, for the most part. And I really introduced hip hop and dance music to Dave which he loved. And it became kind of like a theme throughout all of our friendships and stuff, was that we just loved party music and stuff that made you dance and stuff that made you feel good. And so that was a lot of the original, especially like Highly Refined Pirates and shit, is like a lot of like, we wanted to make things that would make people, want to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like when we first got Jake, the singer in the band, he was like, I don't know what to write about. And I was like, write about having fun. Like, listen to the songs we're ripping off, And so, I mean, then we all bought yachts and raced up to the islands, like that's a direct him kind of, being like, it's not like we were buying fucking yachts at that point.
Right.
It's theoretical. And, he's a storyteller. And so, that's where a lot of that early stuff came from.
Why did you move to Seattle? I know you were in Kill Sadie, and then...
Yeah, we were in Kill Sadie, and it was like one of those bands where we took it dead fucking serious, even though we were playing in front of 3 people in a basement. And I hit a point where I just we were doing some touring and stuff, and I hit a point where I was kind of like, you guys, I don't think we'll do anything in Minnesota, and I think we're heavily distracted at home. So if we want to do a band and we as individuals want to be musicians that work at playing music, I think we should get the fuck out of here. And everyone agreed. And so we planned these 2 huge tours where we did like the East Coast and the South, back up through the Midwest for like a month and a half. And then we took a break, and then we went and did like the South and the West Coast. And we were trying to find a place to live, where we all agreed on. On the East Coast, we all wanted to move to Philly. And then the like 3rd to last day here, the goal was to try to hit every state, or every city in every bigger city. And like the 3rd to last day, we got to Seattle, and it was just like that for us. It was instant. We were, like the show we played here was great. We were like welcomed pretty quickly. It just so happened that the girl that I was dating, who lived in California, was also going to move to Seattle. So It was just like a win-win for me. So we got home from that tour in like October, November of 98, and I was like, guys, I'm ready to go. So I was the first one to move out here, and I kind of got the band, I got us a little planted out here, and then within the next month or 2, the rest of the band moved out. My brother, who was in the band, decided to stay home because he was going to get married to a lady, so he quit the band. And then the singer of our band also quit. So I knew Steve, who's the singer of These Arms Are Snakes, he was 17 years old and living in Iowa. And he was just this incredible front man for this tiny little Iowa hardcore band called The Kinship. But it was just obvious that he had something. And so I called him, and I think we had met once. And I was like, hey man, I know you really like our band. We lost our singer and we're moving to Seattle. Do you want to move with us? Just cold called the fucking kid at 17 years old. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I fucking want to. Yeah. And so he just packed up his life, and the band, because like I said, I got out there first. They drove down to Iowa in a fucking U-Haul, picked him up. None of us had really ever hung out. And then they all came out.
What neighborhood did you end up residing in?
When we first got here, we lived in the U District. Okay. We 10 of us, because some of the guys brought their girlfriends, and so it was 10 of us that all lived in a 5-bedroom house. And the U District just had those big kinds of houses. I wasn't even old enough to drink when we moved here. I was 20. Steve was 17. The kid couldn't even buy his own fucking cigarettes. We were pretty young. So that's just pretty crazy. It was wild.
Were your parents like, yes?
Yeah, they were. My dad really wanted me to go to college, and he really wanted my brother to college, and neither of us did. I essentially graduated high school, and Kill Sadie started touring like instantly. And then from like 98 until 2014, I pretty much toured 6 to 9 months out of the year for that, however long that is, 14, 15, 16 years.
It's a lot.
And so when my family saw the dedication, whether we were making money or not, when they saw the dedication, they knew that, they were cool with it after that.
So
my mom was always supportive, but
Yeah. So, man, how long were you in Kill Sadie before that kind of disbanded? Like, how long were you in Seattle as Kill Sadie, and then
a few years.
Okay.
I think we made it into 2022, maybe. I think Minus the Bear started in 2021. Am I doing that
2001,
right?
I think.
2001. Sorry. See, that's why I just said, am I doing this right? I am like so bad with years. I'm dyslexic also. And so I get numbers. So please just correct me as we go. 2001, not 2021, Erin. That was right after the fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
Or during.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry. Long day at work, man. My brain's a little gone. We moved there in 99. And I think we were, Minus the Bear started in 2001. And, we were in, when Minus the Bear started, Botch was still a band.
Mm-hmm.
Murder City was still a band. And Sharks Keep Moving was still, but they were all still bands.
Right.
And then we started Minus the Bear. And then shortly after that, Pretty Girls Make Graves started, which was Jay from Kill Sadie, and Derek from Murder City Devils. And then essentially that kind of broke up Botch, Murder City, and I think maybe Murder City was kind of ending anyways, maybe, I don't know. But all of our bands essentially broke up, and then through that, the bass player from These Arms Are Snakes, the singer of Kill Sadie, the guitar, so These Arms Are Snakes, Minus the Bear, and Pretty Girls were all formed within the same year.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. What were the main clubs at that point that you were playing
the
at?
Paradox.
Okay.
Our first show was at the Paradox, which was a tiny little venue in the U District.
And
also.
You guys had not even, if I remember correctly, you guys had actually not even played live before your stuff had come out.
Yeah. We demoed some stuff. We wanted to do a demo, and obviously at that time Matt Bayless was in the band, and Matt records bands.
Yeah.
So it was just easy for us to demo. We did 2 songs, and I had met when I'm in my 1920s, I worked at the mailboxes, etc., on the Ave, in the U District, and David Dickinson from Suicide Squeeze had his mailbox there.
Oh, nice.
So him and I just began talking, and that was when he was only putting out 7 inches, and he didn't really have many bands on his roster, and I was begging him to put Kill Sadie records out, but it wasn't his vibe. And so Minus the Bear recorded 2 songs as a demo just to be like, what do we sound like? And David heard it and immediately was like, here's money, go back and record every song you have. And because we had, because Matt had studio time and access, we were just able to quickly go in and do it. So that was what's the name of that EP? Gigantic. This is what I know about being gigantic.
Yeah.
That's where that came from. And yeah, we like literally had copies at our first show, which was, a fucking trip, but it was also cool,
Well, was there some pressure on that though, then? Because like if you have something out,
not at all.
like already, no.
That's
cool. Yeah. I mean, I would think like not many bands do it that way. Maybe they do it.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. I mean, now all the time, of course.
Yeah.
Right? People have full fucking catalogs out before they even hit the road.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really nuts. So, I mean, obviously you spent 14 years in Minus the Bear, which, it sounds like, from what I understand and if kind of know, it's like it was a little bit traumatic, as you may have stated.
Yeah.
And
I was, and I'll just say it bluntly, for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Not just me, obviously. I mean, I have my side of everything, but like, yeah, it was rough. I fell really deep into my alcoholism. Sorry, I'm just interrupting you now, but yeah, no, it was rough. Addiction and alcoholism are real.
Yeah.
People do things that aren't great. I was in a marriage, and we had a kid, and I was just out of my fucking mind. I was drinking excessively, like very, very excessively, and everyone knew it. And I made some pretty shitty mistakes. I drank through a lot of shit that I shouldn't have drank through. Being totally honest, I tried to quit drinking for like a day. My parents came to town to visit, and I was playing in another band with David Totten, I was playing in a band with David Totten, and we were playing a show that night in Ballard. And so I was driving from West Seattle, where I lived, with my, 1-year-old kid and my wife. And I had just been diagnosed major depressive.
Mm-hmm.
I was misdiagnosed bipolar, and I went and got diagnosed major depressive, so I started trying to get on antibiotics to take care of myself. But I'm drinking a fucking bottle of Jack,
Antidepressants, right?
So yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'll work on my mental health, guys, but I'm
Yeah.
drinking a bottle of, later I realized that, alcohol is a depressant, and so I'm just pouring a depressant into major depressive, right? And that's when panic attacks started. I started getting a ton of suicidal ideation during that point, which, I haven't really talked about much, but you're a therapist, you fucking
Yeah.
get it. And I tried to quit drinking one day by myself, and I had a seizure behind the wheel on my way over to band practice. And I ran into it. I was like just off the Ballard Bridge, so I could have flew off the bridge. I had a withdrawal from alcohol, and I had a seizure. And I fucking blacked out for 6 full days.
Wow.
And it was really traumatic because my parents were in town. And the band had to come over and like witness me in this state. And it was awful. And I was lucky enough that my parents were there, so they kind of helped take care of things. And so I woke up essentially. This guy, Nate, who I was doing band management with, and my wife flew me down to, my parents paid for me to go to like a kind of bougie rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking at it now, I'm like, I would go back there for a fucking vacation, right?
Yeah.
But they knew that I was pretty anti-religious at the time. And my parents were like, hey, if this is going to work, let's send them somewhere that isn't AA related, right? Because all he's going to do is fucking bitch about God, which, of course, then I did later as I entered AA. But so I did that, and then I got out, and the band had to do a show or two without me. Maybe they did a tour without me. And this guy named Garrett Lunsford, who played in a bunch of local bands, filled in for me. And it was hard. It was hard for them. I can't imagine. It's like you have a drummer and then all of a sudden he's off in fucking rehab, Flaming Lips. It's the compassion was rough was rough, right? But then there's also resentment that comes with all that.
Just really quickly, Erin, did the alcohol sneak up on you? Or was it like...
No, totally. I mean, it always felt manageable.
Right.
It was, I would say it was like, I mean, it was during the pregnancy when it really started becoming an issue. But when she had to quit drinking, she was like, well, if I have to, you have to. And as I told you, 6 months later, my body was so physically addicted that going one day without it, I had a seizure, right? But that was like when the major depression really started kicking in. Like I mentioned, panic attacks. Like there were days where I was like, I couldn't even get off the fucking floor for like hours at a time at that point. So yeah, it really snuck up on me in a weird way. And then, what addicts do, they start trying to hide shit. So I'm like, I would go to the liquor store and buy like mini bottles of alcohol so I could like hide them around the house and she wouldn't know, and just shitty alcoholic things, like
it was funny. Like when I was talking to Damon, cause he got sober too, and he had a real alcohol problem, and he said the first night that he was in rehab, he had like an 8-hour panic attack. And what I know is because I'm actually coming off a benzodiazepine right now and have been for like a year, is that they both work on the GABA receptors, and so when he got sober, all of a sudden there was this huge rebound of GABA that went into his brain. And
man, that's real.
Yeah. And it sounds terrifying. And as somebody who struggles with extreme anxiety too, I know it's terrifying,
Yeah, no, it was, and it was so new. And I I was hiding it from the band, trying to hide it from my wife. I mean, I didn't know what to do. It just hit me like a fucking wave. Right. And it was hard. And that was like, the whole first year of getting sober was like year and a half was like locking myself in my apartment, fucking gritting my teeth, like not only was it really hard to get sober from the alcohol, but then I have all the guilt and shame. And then I have the fact that I lost every single, which my later on in therapy was like, that's like an incredibly traumatic moment, Erin. But I had a relapse after a year and a half, and it was the stupidest fucking thing ever. Minus the Bear released their first single off of whatever their full length is called, Voids. And the first single was pretty brutally about me.
Mm.
And it was shitty. And again, like, I don't blame Jake for writing it, like, you write about what's going on in your life. But at the time, of course, it felt horrible.
Sure.
And so then I go have this meeting with my ex-wife, and then I just fucking lost it. And I walked into a fucking bar, at this like total old man bar that I didn't think anyone in a million years would see me in, because it's all guys who are like 70 drinking at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I order a fucking drink, a big one. And I fucking take like 2-3 sips of it maybe, and fucking Corey walks in, like, out of fucking nowhere, right? I'm like, you motherfucker. And he just looks at me and he goes, in this condescending fucking way. Now I look at it, and again, he's worried about me, but of course,
Right.
I think he's being mean to me. But he's like, "Oh, you're drinking, huh?" And I was just like, "Fuck you," and I'm like, "Fuck you and fuck your album." I just went off on him. But then I went home and I texted a friend, and I was like, "Hey man, I just relapsed," and he just sent me the text message, "Surrender," and that was January 16th of whatever 9 years ago is now, and I haven't had a drink since. I told on myself, and I had a probation officer at this time, and I called my probation officer, and I was like, I don't know when I have a urine test, but I just took 3 sips of alcohol, and she was like, okay, thanks for telling me. Can you come down? I'm gonna make you take a test, and I thought I was going to go to fucking jail for breaking probation. I thought I was going to go away for like 30 to 90 days or something, from, again, the stupidity of letting my emotions bring me to having 3 sips of a drink. And they took me right into the court, and my lawyer showed up, and he was like, "Hey, the judge wants to make an example of you. You're probably going to go away for 6 to 9 months." And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I went down to the bathroom, and I got down on my hands and knees, and I was like, I don't normally do this, but the last year of AA has taught me to do this. And I was just like, I just need the willingness to get through going to jail. Like, I'm not asking you to bail me out. I made the mistake, but I just need the willingness. And I got up off my knees and I walked back. And apparently my probation officer went in and talked to the lawyer and was like, listen, he told on himself. He's really trying. He's been clean for a year and a half. Like, please forgive him. And the judge did. And that was a huge break for me in my sobriety. And I was just like, I am going to get sober. This is it. And just like every alcoholic, during that year and a half, I made it to the 4th step, made it to the 4th step, didn't get past it, or whatever. And after that, I started taking it really seriously. And I did, man, you got to fucking write a fearless and moral inventory, which means you gotta break out all your secrets, over your entire fucking life. And they ask you to do it, the AA program, and again, I openly say this, AA isn't for everyone, but thank God it fucking worked for me. 9 years sober now, my daughter's never fucking seen me drunk, besides when she was 1.5 years old. I feel very fortunate that it worked for me. But it's hard, that step is really hard, especially for people that aren't ready to admit the dark shit. By that point, I was ready to admit the dark shit, because I realized that the addiction had so much hold over me. Not just what happened with the band, not just what happened with my marriage, but over my life at that point. And so it was time for me to own the shit. And so I just buckled down and started doing the work. And through that, I was lucky enough. I fell into social work. And I started working, for anyone that doesn't know me, I started working for a non-profit agency that does housing for the homeless in Seattle. And I rose from the bottom, like literally working the front desk over my 8-year career up to senior management. I became a mental health case manager. I worked closely with SUD counselors, and all of my world around mental health and addiction opened up. And it was, I got the joy of learning that I can let things go, and that my guilt and shame is, it needs to be recognized, and you need to put in the work, but that it doesn't own me, and it doesn't have to be the second half of my life. And working in social work, and working, especially through the rise of, when I first got into that work, it was like crack and heroin, and then then we graduated into meth, which became, as you know, is a huge epidemic in this city, and then fentanyl came creeping in, right? And so all of this different stuff started happening in my own brain around recovery, and um, it became, a pretty big mission of mine to really work on myself, which was hard and really great at the same time. I learned a lot, I mean, sitting hand in hand with someone on their deathbed who's going through a fucking overdose is intense,
Yeah.
I've had some really, I can't tell you how many dead bodies I've dealt with in the last 8-9 years. It's really, really hard work, but it's really great. And I'm getting a lot out of it.
How did you get involved in social? Like, why did you make that decision?
Honestly, I couldn't find a job because I had a domestic violence charge. And I also didn't do shit. I fucking graduated high school and started touring. My hope when I initially got kicked out of the band was like, hey, I'm Erin Tate from Minus the Bear. Someone's going to pick me up and I'll just go join another band, right? And it just never happened. And then once I started taking sobriety seriously, I started getting some offers, but I couldn't tour with people who were drinking. At that very time, or, frankly, people who wouldn't deal with their own mental health issues. I was scared that it would slide me back. And I made a commitment to my ex-wife and to my daughter and to my parents that I wouldn't slide back. I finally made that commitment when I did that step work. Initially, I made that commitment. And that was the beginning of my living amends as well. That was and for anyone that doesn't know about living amends, there's a lot of people that won't take your apology. And I've learned that pretty brutally. There's a lot of people in the Seattle scene that hate my fucking guts that I have tried to apologize to and own my behavior, and they just don't want to hear it. And that is okay. It's hard in the moment, but we learn this in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have to just do our part because that's literally all we can do.
Right.
There's nothing, we can't control other people. Like, that's why acceptance is such a huge part of AA. And it still haunts me to this day. There's so many things that I wish I could clear up. But that's where it is. But the social work thing initially started, I'm a little rambly, I'm sorry. Okay. The social work thing started because I met a guy in my domestic violence class that had started working for this agency that did housing for the homeless, and they had a position that was called an on-call, which was going around to all the different buildings in the agency and working the front desk. And I went in and I got an interview, and I just opened up and I was honest. And I just told him, I was like, I've had a really rough last year, year and a half or however long it had been at that point. And I'm like fucked. I can't find anyone to rent me an apartment, but I can't watch my daughter without an apartment,
right.
And so I had this woman at this agency take a chance on me. And and like I said, I rose up quickly, and I was, I just dove into the work. And it's, now it's become like a massive passion in my life. And, just giving back in general is a massive, massive thing for me these days. Because I do believe in living amends. I do think that even people that despise you can look at things later in life and go, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't need to be that angry, or maybe I did need to be that angry. And because I was so angry, I helped Erin along in his journey of recovery,
Yeah. What drew you to AA? Because like you said, it doesn't work for everybody. It's especially people who are very anti religious, or just don't want to hear anything about the spiritual side, or
Yeah. I started AA before I was kicked out of the band. My ex-wife was like, hey, I know this one dude that's sober, who's still my sponsor to this day. So I met this dude through my ex-wife, and he started taking me to meetings, and it didn't click with me, but I knew I had to do it. I knew I had to appease my ex-wife. I knew I had to appease my parents. So I was doing it for the wrong reasons. But this guy was amazing. And he taught me, some of the stuff that he said to me right off the bat changed my life. And it changed the way that I work with people now. One of the first things he said, he was driving me to a meeting, our first meeting, he came and picked me up, and I was shaky. And he said, one thing I really want you to know is that you are going to have a massive problem with your ego. you're a fucking guy who's in a mildly popular band, and you are now lowering yourself to say, I'm Erin and I'm alcoholic in a meeting. And he said, and you're going to look at people judgmentally, and you're going to think I don't need to be here. And he said, there's a principle in AA, and I'm going to say it out loud to you, and I want you to think about it. He said, principles before personalities. Do not judge the people that are there. Look at the reason that they're trying to get sober to better their lives. And that was pretty huge for me. And so, yeah, that was a huge thing. And so I casually went to meetings, but then, once I was, dethroned from my home and dethroned from my drum set, and I was, on probation and all that shit, and I, obviously I have issues to work through. My sponsor said, do a 90-90. If you don't know what that is, it's 90 AA meetings in 90 days. And at that point I was like, well, whatever, I'll just do whatever. Right. Like I have to.
Yeah.
And he said, and again, this was really great advice that I still use for people all the time. He handed me one of the books, and he said, you have a car. Do not go to the same meeting twice. Go to 90 different places in 90 different days. And he said, when you get to a meeting that you don't like, put an X on it. If you get to a meeting that you would be willing to go back to it, put a check mark on it. I probably did 60 to 70 different meetings. I didn't take his advice and do the 90-90, but fuck if I didn't find my people.
Yeah.
And a huge thing for me around the ego aspect and the needing to be there aspect was during that 90-90. It was like week 3. I went into a meeting, and I ran into this rapper from Seattle named Pearl, who was in a band called Champagne, with Mark from the Blood Brothers. Was the drummer of the Blood Brothers, was like the beat maker in that band. And there was 2 MCs, Pearl and Thomas. And I ran into Pearl, and I hadn't seen Pearl in a long time. And I only knew him from the Capitol Hill days of running around, closing out a bar and snorting cocaine off of a fucking highway guardrail at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I only knew him from those times. And I saw him, and I was like, whoa, like, you're sober, dude? And we sat and talked for a while, and, he was just like, yeah, man, like shit got out of control. And I went to rehab, and, I told him that I went to rehab, but I relapsed right away when I got out, and then I got kicked out of the band. And he was like, cool, here's my number. And he gave it to me, and he was like, keep doing the 90-90. So the next day I went to another meeting, and I fucking walked in, and Mike McCready from Pearl Jam was there. Same conversation. And, he was just like, just go at it. Here's my number. Don't give up, right? And he was like, you're going through a lot of shit, and you got a lot of wreckage to clear up, but just don't give up. And that was Mike's message to me. And Mike's wife was super instrumental. And then 3 days later, I went to another meeting, and fucking Macklemore was there. So it was this trifecta of 3 incredibly talented Seattle musicians who were like, dude, you can do this. And so I dove in, and it changed my life, the AA 12 steps are powerful when you do them. They're really powerful. I did the 12 steps in another program also, later on or whatever, but I just believe that step work is powerful. It changed my perspective on things. It changed how I handle situations. I was able to start learning how to behaviorally control myself. As in my emotions, my emotions didn't run the show.
Yeah.
It took me a while to learn that one. And even in sobriety, I did some shitty shit and I pissed some people off. But there's something, and I was talking to another addict about this recently. We were talking about cross addiction, and I'm sure as a therapist, well about cross addiction, right? And we started talking just about how you get, like I got addicted to work. And then I went through this whole pattern where I just couldn't deal with I'm looking at myself now, and I'm saying this humbly, and I'm admitting this because it sounds horrible when I say it out loud.
Yeah.
But I could not get over needing attention.
Yeah.
I needed attention. I needed people to tell me that I was doing a good job. I needed the band to come back and tell me that I was 5 years sober and they needed me back in the band. I needed Dave to reach out to ask me to play. I needed that. I needed that validation and that attention.
How do you deal with the major depression versus, so I'm not a SUDS counselor, and I actually only work with teenagers and young adults. And the world that you're currently in, I worked in for a little bit, homeless case management and stuff like that. I got the fuck out of there because like I couldn't handle it.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's super exhausting. And like I've recently realized that all my trauma, I mean, I worked in inner city Philadelphia and stuff like that. And I just realized like recently that all of that trauma caught up with me in my nervous system and had a mental breakdown. But like, the mental health side of like, because I don't know the substance use side. I had to take a class when I was in grad school, and we had to go to AA meetings and things like that. But my world is very focused on the mental health aspect,
of course,
right? And like, how
you're a private therapist, bro.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like the idea of how are you dealing or separating out maybe the major depressive disorder and the substance use side.
So, you know, I mean, at this point in my life, and, you know, this is one of the things that the AA people say, that, you know, like once you do the steps and you do the work, the obsession is lifted. I haven't had a craving for a drink. I've thought about a drink, but I haven't had like a craving or even like, should I do that in fucking 5-6 years now? I'm over that part of it. And it doesn't mean that it can't happen today. It could literally happen while we're on the phone talking about it, right? Like, who knows? But I'm really lucky. What I have to do is I have to watch my behavior, whether it's in a cross-addictive way or an attention-seeking way or a being mean to someone way or a gaslighting someone way. Like, my recovery versus my mental health is making sure that I am on board with the way that I want to, you know, who the man I want to be, right? Like, I posted this thing online on like Friday or Saturday, where like I'm also in a new band called Radio School, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because talk about people uplifting you, but if you want to hear about it. But I got into like an argument with my bass player, and her and I were fucking screaming at each other. And I have not fought like that or been that mad where I would raise my voice since I did a lot of this work, because I refuse to be mad now. I process my feelings in a much quicker way. I don't process them instantly, because that's really hard to do. But if I blow up at someone, I'm quick to apologize. If I do something wrong, I'm quick. You know, I learn how to own it. You know, I'm learning how to own it. That's what I should say. And so for me, it's at this point in my recovery, you know, 10 years of therapy, you know, multiple different kinds of therapists, medication, psychiatrists. I feel differently now in depression. My depressive brain doesn't go to drinking alcohol anymore. My depressive brain goes to, I don't want to be alive.
Sure.
And so I have to separate the two of those. And the biggest part that I have learned, I've been able to learn how to compartmentalize the depression and the anxiety from the addictive patterns. I don't always do it well, but like I said, I got home last Friday after having this conversation with my bass player, and we actually ended up having band practice that night, and we made up, but I called myself out on it. I was like, hey, I got to a point today that I haven't been in 3 years. And I hated it, you know? So if there are people out there, talk about your fucking feelings. And one of the things I learned in early recovery was tell on your inner addict. I tell on my feelings now. I've got an incredible support network of people where I can go to them and say, man, I just want to fuck up the world right now. Like, I'm ready to, addicts blow up their lives, right? I'm ready to blow up my life. Like, I was about to quit my job last week while I have a mortgage and child support to pay, because I was like, fuck you. Who are you guys to tell me, like, in your organization where I'm one person out of 1,400, who are you guys to tell me, my ego was damaged. So I came home and I did some ego work. I do step work whenever there's an issue now in my life or whatever. Not all the time, but I try to. And so it's really helpful for me to be able to manage both of those in different ways. I have to meditate just to slow my fucking brain down.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, I walk early in 2020 when the pandemic hit. A friend of mine and I agreed to walk 5 miles every day, or 10,000 steps every day. So we got Fitbits.
Nice.
I did 6 years straight of walking 5 miles every day. Didn't miss one day for 6 years.
That's awesome.
And then I finally was like, I think you've proven it that you can do it, Erin. It's time to stop.
What do you think people maybe misunderstand about having major depressive disorder, or just even suicide is obviously a very common topic in what we in the world that I deal with, and probably in the world that you deal with, especially within addiction and homelessness and those different things. Like what do you think people don't understand about what it's like?
I just don't think people understand. I just don't think people, I mean, it's a fucking, you know, at this point in our generation, like it's a buzzword, right?
Yep.
Like everyone has depression,
right?
Everyone has anxiety. And I can tell you that one of the biggest failures that I made in my like first 5 years of recovery was how real depression is, right? Like it became such a buzzword where I was like, I don't want to even talk about it to people, because who isn't depressed?
Right.
Like Donald Trump's our fucking president, you know, like little kids are so fucked up, you know, so fucked up now that, you know, like when we were younger, we didn't talk about that kind of shit as much, which maybe fucked us up, but like, you know, it wasn't so common. Right. And so I felt really embarrassed to talk about how dark my depression was until, you know, really, really the last 3 years. Unless you are in something, you don't know what it's like. And so, you know, trying not to judge people unless you know what it's like is the biggest advice that I could give anyone, right? Because depression can range, you know, like it can be,
I mean, that's why we have different designations for them.
Exactly.
In
you know,
health,
but I mean, you know, man, like not everyone goes to therapy.
Right.
Not everyone does self-help work. You know, people are like, I'm fine. And I'm like, motherfucker, you're not, you know, like no one is fine. Like
right.
Everything is fucked up. And, you know, people that aren't willing to do their own work will never understand it. And so, you know, it's just, and it's the same thing with addiction, you know, like when I first was trying to get sober, you know, my dad and my stepmom looked at me and they said, just stop drinking. You know, 8 years later, they apologized to me. And I, you know, you can't expect people to know what they don't know, you know, like, and it's everyone's life mission or life journey is different.
I was going to ask you just, you know, I have my own story with mental health, and, you know, I really agree with you. The last episode I did, or the last conversation I had was with, Jim Ward. And we were kind of talking about, you know, how it was funny. I called him like a nightmare client, to just kind of joking with him, but like, you know, just kind of thinking about that, like mental health has kind of become sexy now, you know what I mean? And like, he was talking about like, he's really careful to not wear it as a badge. Yeah. And, you know, that it's a different kind of understanding. If you've never been suicidal, or you've never, you know, when people say they have anxiety, I'm very quick to be like, well, tell me what kind of anxiety. Do you have an anxiety disorder, or do you have anxiety? Or, you know, are you feeling depressed, or do you have a major depressive disorder? Do you have an episode going on? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, you know, people are like, oh, that's a bipolar episode. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going through a depressive episode.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's because, like I said earlier, because it's become, oh, look at this little guy. Because it's become such a, you know, popular word, or however you want to place it. It's just, and I did it myself. I didn't take my own depression seriously.
When did that?
It sucks. You know, it sucks to not, you know, it sucks to not wear it as a badge or ignore it or whatever, you know. I mean, I totally hear what Jim's saying, you know, like I talk about it openly now, because for a lot of reasons, you know, like I have people out there that, you know, they say that they're a victim of my behavior. And that's hard to hear. It's really hard to hear, but I have victims out there, and I recognize that. And then, I have people, so I'm open because of that, because I don't want people to not know that I'm okay with my own behavior, right? Like I've had to work on it, like I've had to work on it for a decade, and I'm still working on it, and the work is never over. Like you don't just get cured,
right?
Ever. You don't just get cured. But yeah, I think it's so common, and it's hard to talk about it. But then in my line of work, I talk about it,
right?
Because I mean, I've just had, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I've had a lot of success in the field that I'm working in, with a lot of very difficult clients for those reasons, like
right.
for that or whatever. But yeah, it's brutal. I was talking to my kid about this the other day, and this is actually the fight that I got into with my bandmate. Was like, my kid talks about, oh, he's probably borderline. My daughter's 13. She'll be 14 tomorrow. And she's been saying words like that. Oh, I don't want the trauma of that.
Right.
Like she's been saying this shit since she was 9. Like we didn't use those as buzzwords, like we call people narcissists like that now.
Yeah. It's
like
different
fucking
than
that.
Yeah.
It's
narcissism personality disorder.
Exactly. Like, and I'm like, people are, bipolar, fucking, like the words that we use to describe people are so inaccurate, first of all, and you don't understand it unless you understand it, just like depression, right?
Tricky. I remember, I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder almost 14 years old, and I tried not to let it bother me, but like the idea of people saying like, oh, I like things very straight and neat and organized, so I'm like OCD. I was like, motherfucker, you don't know OCD until you're like,
you don't know obsessive.
Yeah, you don't know obsessive. You don't know what a compulsion is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll transition into Radio School, the band. This woman named Kim Miller, who when I first moved here, I knew her. She's an amazing person. She's brilliant. She's a fucking lawyer now. I haven't talked to her in forever. She moved from here to New York. Minus and I would see her on tour in New York. And then she decided to go to law school, moved to LA. We would see her on tour in LA. Her and her husband and the kids moved back to Washington recently. And after 20 years, so she went to high school with all the Blood Brothers. So she knows all of those. Jordan from the Blood Brothers' twin sister and her were in a band together. Hannah Billy, who I believe plays in The Gossip now.
Okay.
Started playing in The Gossip. So, wicked connection with the Seattle scene, right? She moved back here, and she started playing music again after like 20 years. She's a bass player. She actually played cello on a Kill Sadie song on the record that we recorded here. But she has deep history and deep roots with all of those people. Again, who I don't talk to anyone anymore. I was disowned from the scene in that sense. Kim reached out to me, and she was like, hey, me and my friend Alan started a band. We've been playing with some other people, and would you be willing to meet with us? And I'm like, hold on a second. What do you know about me? I did that one. And she was like, I know rumors about you. I would love to meet in person and have an honest conversation with you. Like, I know you're sober now. Let's meet. So I met with the two of them, and I just laid everything out. And Kim looked at me, and she was just like, cool. Thanks for being honest with me. Do you want to go to band practice now? And it was the first time, my guy, in a decade where I legitimately felt forgiven, and I felt seen, and I felt heard. And that was a year ago now. Lil Lebowski, I'd been with those guys for 2 years. Like I said, they built me up. And this support system that I have in my friends, and, again, I'm always quick to be like, I know, but I did that. Like I'm always quick to throw myself under the bus for behaviors, but like, we don't have to let it ruin the rest of our lives. I'm going to be 48 this year, and I'm so tired of everything that I've had to go through in the last decade. And I just want to be a good dad. I want to be a good sober person in my community. And now I'm back to playing music, like after a decade off. Lil Lebowski we did a tour. That was only a week, but it was the first time that I toured in a decade. And that was the best therapy I've had in a fucking decade. Like, I forgot that I was a musician. I forgot that I've been doing this since I was a kid, because I let myself get so addicted to alcohol that I fucked up so bad that I exited myself from the music scene. Right. Yeah. But Little Lebowski pulled me back, and now Radio School pulled me back, and I'm working on 2 other projects right now. I have 4 records coming out this year.
That's crazy. That's a
I,
lot.
I go to work 9 to 5. I've been single for 2 years. My ex-girlfriend was right to dump me and make me do work on myself. I was mad about it 2 years ago, but things always happen for a reason, right? Especially in recovery and the one day at a time, mentality. But yeah, I work from 9 to 5, and then I come home and I work on music from 5 to 9. And I'm working on 4 records right now. I'm working on if you want to talk about music, Radio School just released our first EP, and we played our first show last weekend or last week.
At?
And that was great. At the Sunset Tavern, we opened up for a band called the Cribs.
Okay.
And it was like a sold out show already, but we got added to the bill. We opened like at doors, but it was great. And Kim hasn't played a show in 20 years. So we all got over our first show anxiety just quickly. And Barrett Jones, who did like the first Foo Fighters record and has done a bunch of stuff, did our EP. And so it was great. And I got to bond in the studio with 2 of my best friends over music. And then Little Lebowski is finishing a record right now, which is like a year late. We thought we were going to have it done a year ago, but we're like 3 studio sessions away from finishing that record. And then a friend from England, there's this local band called there's a band partly from here called Little Ships. Do you know who Ty Williman is?
No.
Ty was in a band in the 90s called Green Apple Quickstep, really deep into the Pearl Jam scene.
Okay.
I think Stone paid for his first record. Ty's an incredible singer. Him and this guy from England named Mike McNamara started this band called Little Ships, long distance project. They did 1 record in Seattle with a different drummer. And then when they were recording the second drummer, they asked me to do it. We were getting ready to record a 3rd Little Ships record, and Mike and Ty had a falling out or something, or we just decided not to do it. But Mike in England had 10 songs, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a record?" And I was like, "I'm going through a mental breakdown. I'll check in with you in a year." A year later, I opened his Dropbox and I found all these fucking incredible songs.
Nice.
And I'm like, "Hey, a year later." And so I asked him if I could work on the songs, and he was like, "Do you want to play drums on them?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll play drums." And I have always wanted to work with Eric Richter, who's the singer of that old emo band Christie Front Drive.
Oh yeah.
Eric and I got to know each other, and I also play in this band called Ghost Work with guys from Snapcase and Mile Marker.
Okay.
And then Aaron, the singer of Seaweed, sings for that band as well. We've never played live but we've put out 2 records. Anyhow, I reached out to Eric Richter, and then Ron, who is the drummer of Christie Front Drive, who also is in the drummer collective with me. And Ron's just a phenomenal songwriter. And I was like, "Hey, you guys, Mike wrote these incredible fucking songs. I'll play drums on them, and then I'm going to send them to you guys, and you guys finish them." Right. And Mike and I were so inspired by the work that Eric and Ron just weren't moving fast enough for us. I got this bug up my ass to do it. And then I also work on this project called Take Over the World, which is just vocoder covers of me doing R&B songs, essentially. We are working on a record that's a full band now, but from doing that, I started singing. And I've never sang before. In Kill Sadie, I did backup screaming. There was a band in high school that I tried to sing for a minute, but I took the Them Wave songs and I wrote a story about an addict going through his first relationship in recovery and it being a toxic fucking relationship. So I wrote a concept record, and I taught myself how to sing essentially. And I wrote this incredibly honest, cathartic record for myself. Part of it is being able to say things that I didn't think I've never been able to say because I've always felt too guilty.
Sure.
I didn't feel like I had a side in the story. Because as I mentioned out there, the second that I told the world on Instagram idiotically that I was bummed that Minus the Bear didn't join me, plenty of people were out there to remind me that I still have victims. Right. And so I had to write a record talking about that for my own sanity, really. And so we just finished mixing the record, but it's brutal. The entire record is a trigger warning. But it's a concept record about my last relationship with this wonderful woman. But then also it talks a lot about just other addicts, and we go through a whole thing. I mean, there's a pretty intense song about my suicide, my last suicide attempt. That's, you know, a lot of people won't like it. My bass player, Kim, I asked her to sing on the record, and she wouldn't do it because she was like, "You're speaking too negatively about yourself." And I just don't want to do it. But what I realized while doing the record was that I needed to be able to tell my side of the story, but I also needed to own my accountability. And so I wrote, there's, you know, it's a concept record, so it's a story from start to finish. And I wrote in a lot of female perspective. And my friend Christine sang female perspective, and I essentially threw myself under the bus over what I can imagine my ex and my ex-wife, and, you know, frankly, maybe even the Minus the Bear guys and my friends, the horror that they had to feel, this horror that these people have to feel. And I'm like, I'm a monster.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like, I can do all this good in the world, and people can every day tell me they're inspired by the work I'm doing with homeless people. But when it comes down to my guilt and shame, I feel like a fucking monster. And so I wrote a concept record about it. And it's brutal. And I have a hard time listening to it, because it's awful in a lot of ways. Right. So that's that. That's and then I actually got Chris Common, who played drums in These Arms Are Snakes. He moved to El Paso, and he works a lot. He works exclusively essentially with Mars Volta and with Omar.
Okay.
And I asked him to mix the record because he also went through getting sober in Seattle. When I presented the concept of the record to Chris, he was like, "Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense." And we spent about 3 hours on the phone. And I essentially made amends to him over the phone. And I was like, I would be, you know, and he apologized to me. Cause I told him, I was like, it hurt my feelings that you didn't have my back. You know, like, I understand that I wasn't the best friend, but like, couldn't you at least call and ask me if I was okay?
Yeah.
You know, and he apologized for that. And I was like, that's not very AA of me to ask you, but I want you to be involved with this record because you understand the concept of it. And so Chris, he was mixing the new Mars Volta record. And so we put it off for about a month. But then Chris is free time between Mars Volta and an Omar project. So he just finished mixing the record. We're mastering it this week, and then to be determined on what we're gonna do with it. But it was cathartic as shit.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have some questions about your work, if that's okay. Just
of course, man.
General. You know, so I did case management for homelessness and stuff like that, and so we're both involved in that world. And you know, Seattle is going through a huge homeless crisis, just as Bellingham is. And when you deal with the kind of stuff that you're dealing with, how do you like, I don't know, shield yourself or protect yourself from like vicarious trauma?
Music, art.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was like, when I say that I've learned a lot in the last 3 years, it's because I started creating again, like with the introduction of meeting the Little Lebowski guys. When I went through that mental breakdown last year, I created what is now Take Over the World. And I just was doing vocoder covers of fucking things because I was like, I just need somewhere to focus my energy.
Yeah.
And then I started doing stuff on my phone. It's all like on my phone. I don't know how to record or do anything. I just don't care anymore. Right.
Right.
And this is the message that I bring into both my bands now, or, you know, both the bands that are playing live. And this is, you know, what the energy that Little Lebowski brings is like, we played in Spokane last weekend, and there's 20 people there maybe, and we drove all the way there to play in front of 20 people, and it was the best fucking time because we love playing music with each other. And my whole new philosophy on music, and it's this breakthrough that I got to have this honor of, I got to play music for a living in Minus the Bear, and then it became awful.
Right.
You know, like trying to create the next record to get a fan base, but also wanting to put your art into it, felt awful, and it felt stale. You know, like by the time that we did the last record that I'm on, there's some great songs on that record, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the same energy as Omni, and it wasn't the same energy as Planet of Ice, and it wasn't the,
Right.
and Dave put it a really good way. I listened to an interview that Dave did, and Dave put it a really good way, which is when you're in the van, you're all listening to the same music for the most part, and you're talking about music, and that's what we were doing with Highly Refined Pirates and with Oso and with Planet of Ice. And then when you get on the bus, you're all separated and you stop bonding about music as much. And I thought about it a lot, and I was like, yeah, that's a huge part of what happened. Because as I said, like if you listen to Minus the Bears catalog, the first EP is what it is. Like one of the riffs was even going to be a botch song, and then we made it into a Minus the Bears song. But the first record is Highly Refined Pirates is Dave and I listening to Daft Punk, Kylie Minogue, Justin Timberlake. That was right when the Neptunes and Pharrell Williams were coming up.
Yeah.
And so I was just addicted to that kind of shit, Dr. Dre. And then the second record, Dave and I were listening to like Fortet, and weird like DJ Shadow, like really weird eclectic music. So that's how Dave came up with playing his pedals instead of playing guitar.
Yeah.
Like him and I sat in the practice space. Dave and I practiced 5 days a week. We treated it like it was our job, right? We rehearsed 5 days a week, whether we did something constructive that day or not. But, we came up with he came up with the concept, and then him and I would just get high and be like, how do you play your pedals? Run that backwards, right? Yeah. And so that was Menace El Oso. And then on that cycle of touring, we went to England, and this guy was, we were in Europe. We were in England, and we weren't doing well over there. So we were staying at people's houses. Right. And this guy was like, hey, the promoter was like, if you guys want to stay at my house, you can. My roommate, just gets really high and listens to records. And we were like, cool, weed. We want to go over there. And we got there, and the guy was just, as he said, it was like a Cheech and Chong fucking room. And this guy was high out of his mind and broke out this huge bag of weed for a touring band. We're like, yes, we will take it all. And he just sat there and schooled us on prog rock. We listened to collectively as a band for the first time. We, as any member, we listened to Close to the Edge by Yes for the first time. He played King Crimson's, sorry, the name's escaping me now. With the one that has 21st Century Schizoid Man on it, that record. And he played, I never liked Pink Floyd in high school because all of the horrible hippie kids liked Pink Floyd. Sure. And so I had the preconceived Pink Floyd. And then he played us Animals, and I had never heard any of those records before. And it turned a light switch on for Dave and I. And Dave and I, all of us really, but mostly Dave and I, we got home from that tour, and Dave and I started working on Planet of Ice. And that's why that record is like proggy. And then, yeah, so that's kind of that.
Yeah. So you were in a lot of traumatic situations all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like with that. And I actually just kind of wanted a housing first model, which
sorry, I got us off topic. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Just like, there's, gosh, man, there's a lot that people don't understand about addiction and about homelessness. And I kind of wanted just like to ask you, as somebody who's in the trenches. So I became, I want to say probably incredibly cynical after doing that work. Not also based from a systems perspective, but also like, because I didn't understand addiction either, right?
Yeah.
But I tried to understand it from a mental health standpoint and trauma standpoint. And people think that the solution, or the housing first model is like give homes first, right, as a base, and then go out from there. And they kind of think of it simply as that, right? Something that I wonder, and I'm not trying to be offensive or anything like this, is just I want your perspective on this. Do you feel even in addiction or in homelessness and mental health issues that there are people who are too far gone, like, and unreachable,
like clients?
Yeah, or just people on the street.
Oh, 100%, 110%. Yeah, man.
Okay.
I have, the building I work in right now, I have two clients in particular that are so fucking far gone that it doesn't matter. Like
Right.
one of them burnt himself into a like a meth psychosis, right? Like he is now a psycho because of his addiction to meth.
Right.
And he won't come out of that. And then another woman that we work with was, she's been a heavy user all her life, but she has an incredible traumatic brain injury. And when people are doing drugs, they fall over and hit their heads often. And this woman is, like we were working with her on her alcoholism, and she's pretty mentally ill. She has paranoid schizophrenia. We were working on her. I was trying to work on her alcoholism with her so medication would work, right? Like I'm like, yes, if you take an antibiotic and you drink on it, it's like a 15% chance that it's going to work instead of 100, right?
Yeah.
That's a medical fact that I learned in rehab, right? Thank you for my second rehab where they taught me about the brain. That's a good thing also. Teach people about the brain, as you know. But addiction and the brain, it starts really clearing things up. Anyhow, so I was working on that with her, and one day she fucking came walking down the stairs, tripped down the stairs, fell. I didn't see it, but I'm standing out on the sidewalk talking to someone, and she walks out the door covered. The movie Carrie?
Yeah.
Where they dump the blood on her.
Yeah.
This woman who's 5'5", filthy because she won't take a shower, covered in dirt, now has blood all over her, and I'm freaking out. We get her to the fucking hospital, and they're like, "Oh, she's gone. No way she's gonna make it." And she, she's now got this incredible traumatic brain injury, and they're like, "Okay, like we're gonna, start looking into what her family's doing, all that." She essentially went like into an awake drug coma. I don't like.
Okay.
The doctors didn't even know what the fuck it was at Harborview. She was there for like 3 weeks. We're like literally closing up. We're starting to close up her housing. We're, contacting the family, starting to discard, like getting ready to start discarding items because, you have a certain amount of lease before your lease is abandonment, right? And she snapped out of it. And now she's fine, but she'll never be well ever,
Right.
And there are people's mental health where, that has gone too far down the drain. So there's people that need, like I don't know what mental health team you worked with when you were doing homeless outreach, but like, there's like the PACT team, which is a pretty popular, thing. And they work with a harder population of people, and they have smaller caseloads. So like in an agency in Seattle, the average case manager has 20 to 35 clients, which is way too fucking many.
Right.
But that's just what you do. The PACT people will have 5 to 7 because these clients need more intensive work. So I believe that we can get, this is my opinion, right? There are people that we can work with to an extent. And there are people that are just too far gone. And there are people that don't want housing.
Right.
There's people that agencies and case managers that I have personally watched force their clients into housing, where the client has got up and walked out 3 fucking times during the lease signing. And the case manager basically has just like guilted them into taking it because their name came up on fucking coordinated entry.
Right.
And coordinated entry sucks.
Right.
I did 8 years at one agency, and in between I tried, I told you I was volunteering for a different agency, like a startup, because we wanted to do something different. I believe in the housing first model at this point to a degree.
Yeah.
I do believe that you will have better success working with a client if you get them into housing. The thing that has lost, and everyone says it's post-COVID, but the thing that I believe that permanent supportive housing has lost, and I go to the mats all the time with my agency on this, is that we have lost accountability around roles, and we have stopped fucking case managing people. I'm a site director at my building, which means that I run the building, like every fucking point of the building, and I manage a 24-hour building. I have 14 staff members, and 4 of those are case managers. And I believe in individualized case management.
Sure. Yeah.
I believe, I also don't believe in harm reduction anymore. Like I do when people are doing it to what harm reduction is supposed to be,
Right.
which is a way for people to continue using that begins a conversation into how they're using and safe ways to use, but also what are we going to start doing about the addiction piece?
Right.
Right. And like,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what all, to me, and I'm only speaking personally, right? So like
I think it's a valuable perspective. Yeah.
I run this building in Belltown, and like I mentioned to you earlier, I think it's a historic building. The building is closing. They've given us like a timeline. So like not only are we case managing 102 people, we're also moving them, trying to not traumatize them,
Right.
in their homes that they've been in for whatever X amount of years into these newer buildings that are admittedly much nicer. But I don't know the people that work in those buildings.
Sure.
I can tell you that my case management busts their fucking ass. I personally, as a site director, before I did 4 digouts today, which means that I was on my hands and knees picking up needles.
Mhm.
I was cleaning blood off of a wall. I did 150 trips to the trash with black bags because it needed to get done.
Right.
I operate differently than a lot of other people in my agency do currently. And
Right.
you mentioned something that my agency's doing a reorg right now, which I was bummed about because I was like, we're killing it in PSH right now in permanent supportive housing. Like I am really, really, I know that you can't give up on addicts. Like you have to build rapport and you have to build with trust. And right now, me and my team through contingency management, which the UW has helped my organization work on. We're out of the 102 people that lived there, 96 since I took over the building. We're upwards of, we've gotten 3 people successfully through rehab that are coming up on over about a year sober now, and have just gotten jobs. Like they're rehabilitated if you're using statistic words. And then we've got people, we've got upwards of 10 people who are now just California sober, which means they've entirely stopped using methamphetamine or fentanyl. And then we've got a handful of people, and these are people that are, we're moving out of the building and we're drastically working with them on it. We're upwards of, we've got about 28% now, I think, either completely sober or on methadone or California sober.
Okay.
And those are statistics that I personally have never seen in permanent supportive housing.
Yeah.
But it's because I recognize now the same thing that you just said, like it's gotten worse here.
Right.
In the last 10 years. And we're dumping and I was explaining this to my boss and I was like, you can yell at me if you want, because you're a director, but like, I don't think we're doing a good enough job.
Right.
I work at an agency that a year ago I didn't want to work at because I didn't believe I was losing faith in the model. But in reality, people like me who want to do the work, not just the paycheck, but that want to do the work to actually try to save human lives. We need to work in these agencies too, and I just told my boss, I was just like, I don't trust anyone anymore. I don't trust anything. I just know me and my team.
Right.
And me and my team aren't going to give up on sobriety as an option.
Yeah.
And it's, and I wish more people did it. I think we would have a lot more success. I don't blame the taxpayers who are angry. I don't, we're still, I'm still out with my daughter, my 13-year-old daughter, walking over fucking bodies that could be dead.
Right.
Like it's no fucking thing.
Right.
We're so used to that now. And, my daughter's been doing that since she was 5, 6 years old. Like imagine the trauma that she has now had to experience.
Right.
Just seeing potentially dead bodies on the ground, like I think we need to do better, but we also have to recognize where we're doing well and where we're not doing well. And, obviously the city and the state just throw Band-Aids on things. And that needs to be addressed on a statewide level.
Why do you think people are so black and white on the issue? Because what I've always struggled with is so look, I worked in housing case management probably like 10 to 15 years ago up in Bellingham. And I was a
Yep.
youth case manager, which basically was like trying to get people from 18 to 25 into to housing. We had transitional housing. We had like people who get their own places. But like, to me, we would do transitional housing and then we would house a bunch of traumatized, basically teenagers together, and like shit would go off the wall, and
all the
like,
fucking time.
Yeah, and then we would get asked to deal with abusive behavior from these clients, and just kind of like deal with it. Like we were not supported well as case managers, you know.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of missing pieces, and there's a lot of money that is being spent in the wrong ways. You know, I mean, I can say this, I won't say what agency.
Yeah.
But I know that there's an agency out there that has, if you count the case managers that are working in housing, they probably have between 250 to 300 mental health case managers, because mental health is where money is at, because it's a billable service.
Right.
FCS, right? Like, it's a billable service. You know, it's not a billable service, substance use disorder. So out of the 250 to 300 case managers that agency has, which is great, have case managers, please, right? Like,
Right.
You need to have it. They have a team of 4 to maybe 7 SUD people.
Really?
Yep. Because there's not money in substance use.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
It's not billable fucking services, man. But then we turn around and judge drug addicts.
Right.
You know, they're like, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, right? Where I'm like, all these people are like, just arrest them. And I'm like, our jails are already overcrowded. Okay, well, force them to go to treatment. Where?
Right.
Have you ever tried to get in? I mean, I don't know if you ever tried to get into treatment. I mean, I'm a mostly middle class upper white man, and my fucking parents helped me, right? Like, let me tell you how fucking hard it is to get someone into treatment without insurance. Let me tell you how hard it is to get a homeless client insurance. Where the fuck are we supposed to put these people for the mandatory shit? You're taking all of the money and you're using it in shitty fucking ways.
Yeah,
we
have
and a lot of
my like understanding when we were trying to deal with this was like, but these people, like, there's a lot of people who need to get into addiction services, and there's no beds. One, there's no places to put them. We don't even have services beyond outpatient.
Yeah.
Right?
Me and my team have refused, because there are places that you can go in Seattle that are fucking awful. Like, I mean, they treat fucking people like prisoners.
Right.
And they slop fucking jail food out, and they throw a book at them and they go, read this. And they call that fucking rehabilitation. Right. Like, we don't, like, I shouldn't say I don't do that anymore. Like, we get insurance. We go and research the fucking places that our clients are going. We talk to our clients about where they're going and what they need out of it. Like, I had a client who was like, I'll go, but I need to be able to smoke. And a lot of fucking rehabs won't let you smoke on their campus.
Right.
So we fucking found him one, and he is now 6 months fucking sober.
Right.
Over that one little hiccup, right? Like, we have to individualize case management. No two people are the same. No two people that have the same mental health diagnosis or substance use are going to experience the mental health diagnosis or the substance in the same way, because they have different brains with receptors that react in different ways. It is a snowflake. Right.
Yeah.
So we're spending, I mean, my opinion is, this is, again, my opinion. I love the work that I've done over the last 10 years. I think I have done really good work. I think both the agencies that I have dedicated a lot of time to have done phenomenal work. I also think there's been things that haven't been great. It's not my job to throw anyone under the bus. My job is to do the best I can for the clients I work with, and not have, and then hopefully lead by example, right? Like, people can go, we see what you're doing over there, Erin. We want to do that, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's insane, my dude. Like, the way that my building is contract, I have like 7 different funders, right? Here's a great example of something. I have a client who lives right next to the trash chute. It's a historic building. My building is infested with cockroaches and mice.
Sure.
This guy has a dog. Every day from the trash chute, mice and cockroaches come in and they bite his dog. And they fucking eat the dog food. And he has to live in that. He has to wake up in that, right? And he's telling me about it. And I'm like, my guy, we have empty units in this building right now because we're moving people out. Let me get a hold of project management and I'm going to move you into a clean apartment until you move out of this building. Should be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. He is at our building because of one specific contract and one kind of funding. And unfortunately, at this time, we have none of those units open in our own building. So it would be illegal for me to take this poor guy who's being bitten by cockroaches and move him into another unit.
Right.
How do you think that does for his mental health or him wanting to get better?
Right.
And it has nothing to do with my agency's fault. Because they're just following the guidelines of HUD, SHA, Seattle Housing Authority, Office of Housing, who then put these ridiculous inspections on people, and it's just nuts. Like the money is all being allocated, I statement, in not the best ways.
Right. I was thinking like just, people also have Bellingham at one point had this like 10-year plan to end homelessness. And I was like, you're never going to fucking end homelessness. It's not possible. And the more we kind of think about like, okay, if we have people who are unreachable in a certain sense, like we as a society really need to figure out like, what are we going to do? Right.
Yeah. I mean, we need to think outside of the box.
Right.
Like we do. And we need to be able to spend money in different ways to think outside of the box. Like the poor, I don't know. I have no opinion on the new mayor here. Everyone hates her, but the World Cup, is it the World Cup that's coming here? And, her answer for doing it is to build more tiny homes. And it's like, that's great. It is wonderful to take a person off the street and give them a place that they can come home to with a key and they can make themselves feel like at home as they're transitioning, right? But like, I don't want to throw tiny homes under the bus, but I've known a lot of people that have worked there, and I don't think that I'll say I don't think they're allowed to, because of contracts and whatnot,
right,
to do the appropriate things that are needed for the tiny houses.
Right.
So some journalist fucking sneaks in, or they offer to pay some guy $50 to sit in their apartment while he smokes fentanyl and then talk shit about tiny home villages. One of my clients just did this with We Heart Seattle. He fucking went out and We Heart Seattle paid him to help pick up some trash so they could film him doing it. And they said, we'll pay you. And he was like, cool, I'm going to buy drugs. And they were like, okay, buy the drugs,
go for
but
it.
you have to go to rehab in 30 days. And he was like, yeah, totally. I'll go to rehab in 30 days. Guess where that client is right now? Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I get that people are trying to do things. And, again, like 10 years in this field, I see where some of the, we're so far left. I can see where some of the ideas that the right have might help.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do. And it's all case by case, my dude,
yeah.
It can't be like, we are, when people are like, we're, housing first, we're getting people up into the units. Like, I'm like, if you don't know what your client's, if you're a case manager and you don't know what your client's apartment looks like, you're not case managing.
Right.
They're coming down and they're faking it to you that they're doing it all right at your desk while you're just sitting there typing up the note that you have to write X amount of notes so we get funding.
Right.
Like, instead of like, and so like I said today, like I was upstairs fucking just doing it myself, like I was like, I can't let people live like this, right? But I also have a job to do, and so I can't do everything myself. But like, that's my philosophy on it at this point with Housing First. It has a long way to go, and we're doing some good,
right?
For sure, 100%, we're doing some good, but we can do better. We just need to figure out how to spend the money to do it better.
Right.
And then we need to have small caseloads where case managers can work with 5 people. And, you know, I put it this way to my team all the time. Like, we have like a chat that we talk about, and from my front desk workers to my case managers to my janitors, we're all in the same team, and we talk about our clients, right? I don't disclude anyone because it takes a fucking village, right? Case management is not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
It's an all the time thing.
Yeah. I've probably never had a mental breakdown Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Right.
I've probably never had a relapse on substance Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Right. So like, it is really important to be working with people. We call it the golden hour. Like, I had someone who was willing to, you know, for a mental health thing that we tried to get to, you know, they were going through an obvious mental health crisis. And of course we call DCR, the designated crisis responders that are funded through King County.
Yeah.
And, you know, they do the best. I'll say they do the best they can. They're not successful often because of laws and because of rules. Right. And, you know, if a client can look at you and go, you know, they were just suicidal in the street 5 minutes ago with a fucking needle in their arm. But once the DCR gets there, if they can look at them and go, no, I'm fine.
Yeah,
they can't do anything about it. Yeah. Right. So there's another flaw in the system. But, you know, this client, after weeks of us trying to work on his mental health, and we were meeting with him every day or whatever, at 2 a.m, he came down and he told someone at my front desk that he was ready to go to the hospital. So they texted the after hours person, who then was like, this sounds important to Erin. So they sent me a message. I just happened to be up, and I said, hey, do you have 2 people working? And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, does the person who's at the front desk mind going with them to the hospital? And they're like, I got it. It's cool. Yeah. Drove them to the hospital at 2 a.m. You know, like, that's the work that needs to be done, right? Like, we need to be catering to when people are willing, because, you know, like I said in my story, right? Like, I didn't start AA because I wanted to get sober. I started AA because I wanted to be in Minus the Bear. Right. And because I wanted my wife, and I wanted to do that. You know, I didn't do, you know, you have to do it for yourself, right? But you need the encouragement, and you need that fucking faith in people, you know? Like, I have a guy who has been addicted to drugs now, and I'm this close to getting him to treatment. Every day I bring him out for coffee, because he has never had anyone take him out of the building and talk to him as a human being. He's 34 years old. This kid's fucking brilliant. If he can get off of fucking fentanyl and meth, I guarantee you he'll do big things in his life, right? But I had to take him out and humanize the situation, right? Which is what you need to do. And then I found out that he had a sexual charge from 20 years ago that he was so embarrassed about, you know, that he got into his addiction. And he, to this day, has never talked to anyone until he brought it up to me. And I was like, bro, you can do the work around your guilt and shame around it. It doesn't make up for what you did, but you can make up for it. You know, and I explained amends, and I explained living amends, and I explained all of that stuff to him. And I was open about what, you know, shit that went on with me. And he came back and he looked at his case manager and he said, I think I'm ready to go to treatment. One conversation like that, I just took the guilt and shame away from him, right? Like, that's the form of love that we need to show people. And then, like you said earlier, there are people that aren't going to take it. We'll never solve homelessness because of that. But, you know, essentially the guy that I'm talking about, you know, that I've been taking out for coffee, is that exact same guy that never told his counselor what happened. Right. And so he's been living with that for 20 fucking years. Right. And he refuses to own the behavior. And he is now a fucking full-on fentanyl addict, because he's guilt and shame is so fucking deep. People do awful, awful things in addiction. It happens. You have to own it, and you have to move past it. And that is a huge thing about the stigma of the homeless or the drug addicts or, you know, whatever. And, you know, I genuinely appreciate that you've brought up trauma on several terms, because we talk about trauma-informed care. Right. Let me tell you about trauma-informed care. You know, like, we're not really dealing with trauma. Right. We are acting in trauma-informed ways where we don't judge someone based on their addiction. we're working with them towards these goals. And so, yes, that is a form of trauma-informed care, but like, we're not getting to the root cause of trauma.
Right.
And
in a lot of ways we're reenacting trauma, or we're re-traumatizing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Systematically, over and over and over again.
I worked at a school where, I started to develop some PTSD from this, where like these kids were this was in Oregon, right outside Portland. These were kids who had been kicked out of school, every other school. They were violent. They had padded rooms. There was like all this shit going on. And I was like, this doesn't seem like a fucking brilliant idea to take all these kids who either were like, trauma was the source of it all, right? Trauma is the source of these behaviors. Trauma is the source of, and we put these kids all together.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like Lord of the fucking Flies, man.
Yeah. And then and then they re-traumatize each other. Right.
And create toxic trauma bonds.
Right. Yep. And then it's like, okay, we've really just fucked these kids up in the name of like doing good. And one of the hard things for me in housing case management was that like we were putting I was like, these kids really need like mental health work. And that's why I left, because I really truly believed in that. But I was like, these kids are like 8 or 9 years old in their brains. Yeah. Like they don't have the skills to do this.
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, I deal with adults who are 8 or 9 years old in their brain, I mean, I can tell you right now, dude, when I got sober, I mean, even 9.5 years ago, up until like a couple years ago, I don't feel like an adult.
Right. There's an arrested development that happens.
Exactly. Yeah. There is this fucking trauma to your brain once the addiction or the trauma kicks in that stunts you, and like, again, that's another huge thing that we don't talk about in mental health, in homelessness. And, in that is that like, I have a couple clients where I'm like, guy doesn't know how to flush his toilet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he's been homeless for 40 fucking years. The concept of living in his own apartment.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to come up every day and I'm going to fucking clean your toilet. I'm going to personally pull the shit out of you and you're going to stand with me and we're going to do this every day. Took me 3 fucking months, Monday through Friday. Every day I went up and do it. But now that guy knows how to use his toilet.
Right.
He knows how to cook. He knows how to properly clean his own apartment. Like it takes what it takes, man. You know, like
I'll never forget. We had this this guy. I mean, this was years ago, but they basically, there's one homeless shelter here in town, and this client was developmentally disabled and had gotten kicked out of his home. Sweetest guy.
Yep.
His parents did not understand that he was on the autism spectrum.
Yep.
And they found him at the mission here.
Yeah.
And like literally there was no reason for him to be in there.
Yeah.
Right. And like all he needed was case management, and he was doing fantastic. He has a supported job, like sweetest guy, but like he ended up there because people misunderstood him. Right. And he wasn't an individual. He was just a number at the mission.
Yeah. Which is, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier, which is like misdiagnosing people is so fucking dangerous.
Right.
Like you don't know where that will take you in your own head. Also, you don't know what the stigma around you is going to be. Right. So you fucking isolate. So you go into fucking, like you go into addiction, you go into isolation, you go into, your own head or whatever. And that's just dangerous.
I mean, just like mental health that's, I mean, I know that evidence-based practices work, but like all mental health treatment should be individualized.
Of course.
Because nobody's going through the same exact thing.
Yep.
Whatsoever. And like I'm grateful. It's nice to talk to somebody who gets it, who gets like what working in supportive housing is like, the complications, like even the idea that you cannot get supportive housing until you are literally homeless, like literally sleeping on the street.
For over a year.
Really?
Yep. Coordinated entry.
That is,
I have a client right now. This guy that comes to my building, nicest fucking guy in the world. He had some shit go down in Yakima, moved over here, and he is so great. And he is ready to do the work. He's ready to get housing. He's ready to help out as everything, you name it. We got him into coordinated entry, and he can't get housing because he hasn't been homeless long enough.
I know, it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up because we're not.
But he wants it,
right?
And he wants to contribute to society and wants to pay.
There's no safety net for the people who are following through. We only get to them when they've completely
fallen
broken.
Through.
Yeah,
totally.
And like. I've always been like, we need more preventative solutions. We need to catch people when they're late on their rents or when they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, we need more funding for that so that somebody isn't kicked out of housing, because once that happens, like the amount of trauma you're susceptible to, right?
Yeah.
And living on the streets is enormous.
Yeah, it's fucking brutal, man. I mean, I like talking to one of the guys the other day when I was talking to him about going to rehab, and this is what clicked with him. Because I tell this to everyone, like, I'm like, go to rehab. Like, especially people who are living in permanent supportive housing or are homeless. I'm like, you have a fucking bed,
right?
You get 3 meals a day, you have a shower, you get clean clothes, you have a personalized therapist, you have group therapy, you read books, you eat good food, blah, blah, blah. And like all the guys that I've put through rehab in this line of work come out thanking me, right? And they're like, you're right. And I'm like, the biggest thing that I want you to understand is you can be out of survival mode for 30 days.
Yeah.
Survival mode and fight or flight, when you're in that because of trauma, doesn't end. You will never make a rational fucking decision when you are in fight or flight.
When you
we
were
have
just
to
in
pull the
survival,
people out of the fight or flight. Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for what you, thanks to what you did. I mean, I've personally worked with adults because I can't handle the kid thing. It's too much. I mean, I've done some stuff a little here and there. Yeah. And like when I was doing the volunteer work in between agencies, I definitely dealt with some younger kids and shit, and it's really hard, but like, yeah, I mean, the work just needs to be everywhere, right? Yeah. Like every age group, every fucking thing. And I'm confident in myself in the work that I do, which helps a lot, like I just have work ethic, and I don't know if it's like from being from fucking northern or, from Minnesota where all the Scandinavian work ethic is, or if it's like my own story that brings me there, or cross addiction that makes me work harder. I don't know what it is, but like, people don't understand it, and just talking to you alone, I'm like, oh, you get it,
right.
I don't know if you know, but like as soon as we started talking about what I do for a living, I perk up. I'm really passionate about it, right?
That was something that I kind of really noticed. I was like, this is,
I honestly get like made fun of at work, or like talked about at work through upper management, because I'm very passionate and I'm just like, this is what we need to do, and this is, like, I'm just like, you guys, we blah 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 blah. I'm not as professional. I mean, considering I'm like, I'm middle management right now, and I'm like about to potentially apply for an upper management position. Like, I really shouldn't be in any of those titles because I'm very explosive and very emotional. Yeah. But then there's people who are like, Erin, that's why you should be in those positions, right? Like, let's be a little more real with each other. I mean, the job interview that I just did for a director position, I said, if you guys don't want to do better collectively as an agency, don't hire me.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to do better, then hire me.
Yeah.
Like, it's up to you guys, like, I can just have my normal job. It's fine. I can go do whatever, as long as me and the dog and my kid are all right. Like, it's all good,
This was kind of like what I was looking forward to with the podcast, was at least this part of the conversation I was really like looking forward to talking to you about, with some kind of perspective on this, because I think we are in such a bad state in terms of housing crisis and like all that stuff. And I think it's really important for people to gain some fucking perspective on what it's like to work in these social service settings. Yeah. But it takes like...
it takes a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
You're underpaid, you're
yeah,
overworked, and like
yeah,
it's fueled on passion and desire and hope, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like I think
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm just like everything that you know, like I said earlier, like I work in this field. I work, you know, I don't go to AA as much as I used to, but you know, I still go or whatever. But I work with alcoholics, right? And then I started the Drummer Collective, and the Drummer Collective plays for a fucking charity every month. You
yeah,
know, like I'm constantly trying to give back, and a part of that is my living amends, right?
right.
Like a part of that is like I know I've done some things that haven't been great. They're maybe not awful, but not great, or maybe they
Right.
are awful. Who fucking knows? You know, or fucking intent versus impact is
Right.
a huge therapy concept that my last therapist talked to me a lot about, right? Was like, just because you intend something, you know, like blah blah
Right.
blah. So I thought about that a lot in the last few years also, but like, yeah, you know, it's just like, what else the fuck am I gonna do? I've made mistakes, that's fine. I've paid for them by all means, you know, I at least to some degree, but like I can't do anything now without making sure that it's not ego driven or selfish.
Right.
And like, you know, even I was interviewing for a fucking job at my current agency that I should have gotten hands down. Like everyone in my agency has been like, you're the best at doing this thing, Erin. And I didn't get the job and I was furious. And like I told
Right.
you earlier, I was like ready to be like, fuck off, I quit. Right.
Yeah.
But I came home and I had to check my fucking ego. And I was like, bro, you know, like
Yeah.
who cares? You know, like things will just work how they work. And like ego work is hard. I'm sure you've done some in therapy, right? Like ego work is hard.
Yeah.
Like being able to actually get down to the core of why am I doing this? Is this a selfish act or a non-selfish act, right? Is really hard work to do. And
I did. Jim and I talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah,
On the interview, which was
yeah,
interesting to.
yeah. I mean, you know, it's really a fucking thing, right? Like you get on, you know, especially these lifelong musicians, right? Like you've built your entire life getting on stage to people clapping at what your art is.
Right.
And then you try to grow your art and you grow your fucking thing, you know, and you grow it and you grow it and you grow it. And like, as my first like long-term therapist, you know, said, like you spent 14 years with Minus the Bear doing that. And overnight it was gone.
Right.
Like that is traumatic as fuck. You know, like
traumatic.
you were pushing for this for 35 years of your life and breaking up with girlfriends over bands, quitting jobs, you know, everything was music related, and literally overnight it's gone. And so, yeah, you know, it's like, okay, where do I put that energy then? Right.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's
But all of that, my entire life has been in one giant ego push. So that work is really hard to do. It is. And so that's cool to hear that Jem was talking about it too. You know, like he's gone through a lot of shit himself.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we didn't really get into too much, but he's very much like, like never, ever, ever. He's like the best record the ones that people like glob onto and feel like really, you know, like I think it's probably like Sparta's first, which is, you know, the Wiretap Scars. And he was like, that was the darkest time of my life, like ever. Like my most quote unquote creative successes. Like I was going through something so internally dark. Like,
dude, for me at that, because the record, Them Waves band, the one that I wrote all the lyrics and stuff like that, like this is my record right now, right? And I'm like, I don't fucking care if anyone hears it. Like I got to do this record and do it. But what I call it's in two ways. It's my Phil Collins phase.
Yeah.
One, I'm stepping behind the drum set and singing and writing lyrics. But two, if you listen to Phil Collins solo albums, with the exception, but at least his first 3 or 4, all of them are either during a major life crisis, a divorce, or something happening with like family.
Yeah.
And every one of those records is extremely personal, and they are, you know, dark. They're dark as shit, you know, like, yeah. All 3 of them, especially his first 3 solo records, are dark as shit. And so I'm like, cool, I get to do that now. You know, I'm excited. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
You know, most of the people will probably hate it and be like, you self-indulgent fuck. But, you know, I'm just like, whatever. I'm telling my truth. Fuck you guys. I'm making art, right? Like, I just want to make art.
Well,
Cool. Well, have a good one, man.
Have a good night.
Thanks, brother.
See
Bye.
ya. That does it for this episode. I'd like to thank Erin for coming on again and sharing his story. Safe and Sound is edited and produced by me, Jeremy Houtsma, licensed mental health therapist. Intro song is Burned Out and Broken In by The Beautiful Mistake, and the outro music is Safe and Sound by Small Brown Bike. See you next time.